Roberto Diaz stood in a $45 million bathroom, spray bottle trembling in his hand, while a billionaire's wife screamed that he was her secret lover, a woman he'd never touched, never wanted, never even noticed. The gold ring hanging from his neck, his dead wife's wedding band, suddenly felt like evidence of a crime he didn't commit. Before he could speak, Bradford Huntington's lawyer was already recording, and Sienna was crying. "Tell them about us, Roberto. Tell them everything. What would you do if someone accused you of an affair you never had? Have you ever been blamed for something so absurd you couldn't find words to defend yourself? Has anyone ever used your grief against you? This is what happens when desperate people weaponize innocence." But what Roberto didn't know was that this lie would expose something far bigger than one woman's greed. That Tuesday morning in March 2024 started like any other. Roberto had been wiping down the marble counters when Sienna burst through the bathroom door, mascara running black rivers down her cheeks. Her silk robe hung loose, expensive, but messy. "Tell him," she sobbed, grabbing Roberto's arm so hard her nails dug through his uniform sleeve. "Tell Bradford we're in love. Tell him about us." Roberto froze. Us? What us? He'd cleaned this estate every Tuesday and Thursday for 2 years. The only conversations they'd ever had involved which rooms needed extra attention. The bathroom door slammed open. Bradford Huntington stood there in his golf clothes, face red with rage. Behind him, a man in a $1,000 suit held up his phone, recording everything. "I knew it," Bradford said, voice cold as ice. "A cleaning supervisor and my wife." Roberto's mouth went dry. "Mr. Huntington, I don't know what. The evidence is right there." Bradford pointed at Roberto's chest. "The chain. It must have slipped out from under his collar during cleaning." Elena's ring hung there catching the bathroom lights, gold fixtures reflecting off simple gold metal. "Nice ring," Bradford sneered. "Bet my wife bought that for you." Roberto's face went cold. His hand closed around the ring. "My wife bought this ring. In 1988. She's been dead for 3 years." The room went silent. Sienna's eyes locked on the ring. Something shifted in her expression. Then she said 5 words that would change everything. "That ring is mine. Actually, have you ever had someone twist your kindness into something ugly? Someone who saw your vulnerability and turned it into a weapon? Drop a comment if you know that feeling." As Bradford sneered at the ring, calling it a gift from my wife. Roberto's voice dropped to a tone his coworkers had never heard. "My wife bought this ring 36 years ago. She died 3 years back from cancer." The room went silent. Then Sienna said 5 words that would change everything. "That ring is mine, actually." She claimed his dead wife's ring was her family heirloom, and suddenly a widower's grief became evidence of an affair that never existed. 3 days later, Roberto sat in a law office he couldn't afford, mahogany walls, leather chairs that cost more than his monthly rent. Bradford's attorneys had documents stacked 3 feet high on the conference table. Each page was another threat. "Mr. Diaz," the lead attorney said, sliding photos across the table, "we have evidence." Roberto stared at the images. Him cleaning windows. Him carrying supplies. Him eating lunch on the back patio. Normal work photos, except they were cropped weird, angled to look intimate somehow. "Mrs. Huntington states you've been involved for 8 months, the attorney continued. "And this ring," he tapped another photo, "was a gift from her grandmother. She has documentation." Roberto's hands shook. "That's a lie. My wife, Elena. We're prepared to file conspiracy to defraud charges. You'll lose your house, Mr. Diaz, your reputation, everything." Roberto looked down at his work uniform, the same one he'd worn for 15 years. His rough hands held Elena's photo album, the only proof he had of their life together. Her smile stared up at him from their wedding day. Back home that night, Roberto couldn't sleep. He kept replaying that moment in the bathroom. The way Sienna had grabbed his arm, the desperation in her eyes. It hadn't been love. It had been something else entirely. He thought about Elena, how they used to dance in their tiny apartment kitchen after double shifts, how she'd laugh when he'd spin her, pulling him close and whispering, "We're building something, mi amor. Just us." Her fingers would trace his jaw, promise in her eyes. Elena had worked her whole life, died from cancer she couldn't afford to treat early, and now these people wanted to erase her memory with a lie? Roberto's fear turned to anger. He had 72 hours to respond or lose everything. Walking out of that office, he passed the building directory. One name caught his eye. Huntington, Natalie J., civil rights attorney, 12th floor, Bradford's daughter, the girl who used to watch him clean her childhood home 20 years ago. What were the odds she'd remember him? And if she did, would she believe him or her father? What's the cruelest lie someone ever told about you? When has your truth been twisted into someone else's convenient fiction? Share below. Roberto walked out of that office knowing he had 72 hours to respond or lose everything. But as he passed the building's directory, one name caught his eye. Huntington, Natalie J., civil rights attorney, 12th floor. Bradford's daughter. The girl who used to watch him clean her childhood home 20 years ago. What were the odds she'd remember him? And if she did, would she believe him or her father? The last time Natalie Huntington saw Roberto Diaz, she was 14 and he was showing her photos of his daughter's quinceañera. Now she was the only person with power who might actually give a damn about the truth. Natalie saw the news alert on her phone during lunch. Greenwich billionaire files fraud, charges against staff member. She almost scrolled past. Then she saw the name, Roberto Diaz. Her coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. Roberto, the quiet cleaner who used to work at their Westport house when she was a kid, the man who showed her pictures of his daughter in that beautiful pink dress, who talked about his wife Elena like she hung the moon. That Roberto. Natalie pulled up the full article. Her father was suing Roberto for an affair with Sienna, her stepmother. No way, she said out loud. She remembered Roberto clearly. Every Tuesday afternoon when she got home from school, he'd be finishing up. He'd always ask about her day, show her photos of his family, talk about Elena, how they'd met working at a hotel in Hartford, how she'd organized the other housekeepers to fight for better pay, how proud he was of her. Roberto had loved his wife the way most people love Dare. Necessary, constant, life-giving. This whole thing was garbage. Natalie grabbed her keys. 2 hours later, Roberto stood in her office doorway, cap in his hands. His eyes widened when he saw her. "Miss Natalie." "Mr. Diaz." She stood up. "I saw the news. Tell me everything." He did. Every word. His voice shook when he talked about Elena's ring. Natalie noticed it around his neck. Simple gold, worn smooth from years of wear. When Roberto mentioned how Elena had saved for 6 months to buy it, Natalie's chest tightened. She'd spent years estranged from her father. Bradford had chosen money over family every time. Now he was trying to destroy a good man for… What? His wife's lies? "I'll take your case," Natalie said. "Pro bono." Roberto's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you help me?" "Because you're telling the truth. And because my father has gotten away with too much for too long." She watched Roberto talk about his case. His passion reminded her of something, someone. Then it hit her. Elena. Roberto had described his young wife as a fighter, someone who wouldn't back down from injustice. Years ago, at the 24, Elena had eyes that blazed during union meetings. Roberto had fallen in love watching her fight. Later that night, celebrating in their studio apartment, Elena had pulled him onto their mattress on the floor, her conviction becoming physical desire. Natalie saw that same fire in Roberto now, changed by grief, but still there. Have you ever had someone from your past show up exactly when you needed them? Someone who remembered who you really were? Tell me about it in the comments. Natalie leaned forward, eyes sharp with purpose. Roberto, I need you to trust me, because I think Sienna's done this before. And if I'm right, this isn't about you at all. This is about a pattern. She pulled out a file folder marked Confidential. Tell me, has she ever asked you personal questions about your family? Your wife? Your past? Roberto's blood went cold. She had. Months ago. What did you tell her? Natalie pressed. Roberto swallowed hard. Everything. 2 previous husbands. 2 previous affairs with staff members. 2 massive divorce settlements. And suddenly, Roberto understood. He wasn't her lover. He was her exit strategy. Natalie's apartment looked like a war room. Documents covered every wall. Red string connected dates, names, events. Chinese takeout containers littered the coffee table. Look at this, Natalie said, pointing at a timeline. Sienna's been married 3 times. Each divorce followed the same pattern. Roberto put on his reading glasses, Elena's old pair, and leaned closer. First husband, 2009. She claimed she was having an affair with their driver, settled for $8 million. Driver disappeared after signing an NDA. Second husband, 2016. Alleged affair with their personal trainer, $12 million settlement. Trainer moved to California, won't talk to anyone. Now you, third husband, same accusation, same playbook. Roberto's hands clenched. So I'm just... What? A pawn? You're the exit strategy, Natalie said. Connecticut law says if a spouse commits adultery, prenups get thrown out. Sienna's prenup with Bradford gave her almost nothing. But if she could prove he drove her into another man's arms... She gestured at the papers. She walks away with millions. But why me? Natalie met his eyes. Because you're perfect. Immigrant worker, older, quiet, someone they'd believe would be grateful for attention from a rich woman. Plus, I'm grieving, Roberto finished quietly. Easy target. They worked until 2 a.m. Roberto reviewed files while Natalie made call after call, tracking down information. Around midnight, exhaustion caught up with Natalie. She fell asleep on the couch mid-sentence. Roberto grabbed a blanket, covered her gently. For a moment, he just looked at her. Young, fierce, beautiful. Not in Sienna's manufactured way, but real. She reminded him of Elena's natural strength. He caught himself. Guilt flooded in. His mind drifted to Elena teasing him about other women, her confident, "You're mine, Roberto Diaz, and you know it," pulling him into bed with playful possession. Roberto shook his head. This wasn't the time. Natalie's phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Text from her private investigator. Her eyes flew open as she read it. Found the replica ring, safe deposit box at Greenwich Savings. Dated receipt from jeweler. Commissioned 6 months before the affair. And there's more. Call me. Natalie looked at Roberto sleeping in the chair, Elena's ring resting against his chest. She planned everything, Natalie whispered, but she made one mistake. She opened the next file. She kept receipts. Have you ever realized you were part of someone's plan without knowing it? That you were just a pawn in a bigger game? How did that make you feel? At 2 a.m., Natalie's phone buzzed. Private investigator she'd hired. The text made her sit up straight. Found the replica ring. Safe deposit box at Greenwich Savings. Dated receipt from jeweler. Commissioned 6 months before the affair. And there's more. Call me. Natalie looked at Roberto sleeping in the chair, Elena's ring resting against his chest. She planned everything, Natalie whispered, but she made one mistake. She opened the next file. She kept receipts. Inside a climate-controlled vault at Greenwich Savings Bank sat proof of innocence and evidence of a scam worth $25 million across 3 marriages. The judge's order came through Friday morning. Sienna's safe deposit box would be opened at noon. Roberto stood in the bank vault, hands shaking. Steel doors, harsh lights, everything felt surreal. The bank manager placed the metal box on the examination table. Natalie snapped on gloves. "Here we go," she said, lifting the lid. Inside, a ring identical to Elena's. Receipt dated September 2023, 6 months before the affair supposedly started. Custom jeweler, $800. Next to it, dozens of photographs of Roberto. Him working, him eating lunch, him walking to his car. All cropped tight, angled to look intimate. But the worst part, handwritten notes detailing his schedule, what time he arrived, which rooms he cleaned. Personal details. Wife died 2021. Cancer, daughter in Texas, works 2 jobs, wears wedding ring on chain. Roberto's life documented like prey being studied. "She's done this before," Natalie said, pulling out another folder. Same setup for the driver. Same for the trainer. Sienna had kept her entire playbook. Bradford's lawyers arrived within the hour. Their faces went pale when they saw the evidence. "Mr. Huntington will be withdrawing all charges," the lead attorney said quietly. Victory should have felt sweet. Instead, Roberto just felt exhausted. Natalie turned to him, eyes bright. "We got her." Before Roberto could respond, she threw her arms around him. Brief contact, her arms around him, his surprise at human warmth after 3 years alone. She pulled back quickly, professional mask back in place. But Roberto had felt it, the first stirring of something other than grief. His heart had responded to her touch. Guilt crashed in hard. What was he doing? Elena had been gone 3 years, but it still felt like betraying her. Then he remembered. Elena's last coherent day, her hand weak in his, whispering, "Don't stop living, mi amor. Promise me." His tears had fallen on their joined hands. He hadn't been able to promise then. Maybe now he could. Natalie's phone rang. Bradford's attorney. The offer, $500,000. Full retraction, non-disclosure agreement. Roberto's annual salary was $38,000. $500,000 would secure his retirement, his daughter's future, everything. But signing meant Sienna's pattern would stay hidden. The driver, the trainer, they'd still carry shame without justice. "What do you want to do?" Natalie asked. Roberto looked at Elena's ring. He knew what she would say. Fight. Always fight for what's right. "We go public. Every detail." Natalie smiled. "That's what I was hoping you'd say, because I just found victims 4 and 5. What would you choose? Take the money and disappear, or fight publicly to clear your name? When is winning worth more than peace? Comment your choice below. Bradford's attorney called with an offer, $500,000, full retraction, non-disclosure agreement. Roberto's annual salary was $38,000. $500,000 would secure his retirement, his daughter's future, everything. But signing meant Sienna's pattern would stay hidden. Other men, the driver, the trainer, still carried the shame of accusations without justice. Natalie watched his face. "What do you want to do?" Roberto looked at Elena's ring. He knew what she would say. "We go public. Every detail." Natalie smiled. "That's what I was hoping you'd say, because I just found victims 4 and 5. Once the first domino fell, 3 more victims emerged from the shadows. Men who'd spent years believing they deserved the shame Sienna had branded them with. Michael Chen called Natalie's office the morning after the bank vault story hit the news. His voice shook on the phone. "I was the driver," he said. "First husband, 2009. I need to talk." They met at a coffee shop in Stamford. Michael's hands trembled around his cup. His eyes kept darting to the door like someone might burst in. "She ruined my life," Michael said. "I took the settlement money because I was terrified. Signed the papers. Moved 6 times in 10 years. Always looking over my shoulder." Roberto listened, recognizing his own fear reflected back. "I never touched her," Michael continued, "but she had photos, texts I never sent, a whole story I couldn't fight against." His voice broke. "My wife left me. My kids think I'm garbage, and I didn't do anything." That afternoon, an encrypted email arrived. James Wilson, the personal trainer from 2016, reaching out from California. Video call scheduled for evening. When James appeared on screen, he kept his camera off. "I can't show my face. They told me accidents happen to people who talk." "Who's they?" Natalie asked. "Whoever she hired to make me disappear. I got the message loud and clear after I signed the NDA. Strange cars following me. Break-ins where nothing got stolen. Phone calls with silence on the other end." Roberto felt cold. This was bigger than money. This was organized intimidation. By the weekend, news vans sat outside Roberto's house in Bridgeport. But something unexpected happened. His neighbors formed a protective barrier. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door brought him homemade food. The guys from his building came by with character references. "We know you, Roberto," they said. "We know what you're about." Late that night, Natalie helped Roberto prepare for a media interview. She adjusted his collar, straightened his tie. Her fingers brushed his neck near where the ring hung. Their eyes met. The moment stretched. She cleared her throat, stepped back. Neither said anything about the electricity between them. Roberto thought of Elena, felt disloyal, but also felt alive for the first time since her death. He remembered Elena putting his tie on their daughter's wedding day, her aged hands still sure, still claiming him. "Still mine, viejo," she'd smiled, even as cancer weakened her. Would Elena want him frozen in grief forever? Have you ever watched someone finally get the justice they deserved? Or have you been that person waiting for vindication? Share your story. This community supports you. The third victim's lawyer sent a file at midnight. Subject line, "You need to see this before tomorrow." Inside, documentation of Sienna's first marriage at age 22, before the millions, before the pattern was refined. A different name back then, Sienna Kovacs, cocktail waitress from Newark. The affair accusation that started it all wasn't with staff. It was with her husband's 60-year-old father. She'd been perfecting this scam for 15 years, and the father had died mysteriously 6 months after the divorce. Accidental fall downstairs. Roberto's hands shook as he forwarded the file to Natalie. How far does this go? What started as a simple con became something worse, because when you look closely at Sienna's past, people don't just lose money. Sometimes they disappear. The file on Roberto's laptop screen made his stomach turn. Police report from 2010. Newton, New Jersey. Gerald Kovacs, age 62, found dead at bottom of basement stairs. Ruled accidental. No investigation. Sienna had collected $3 million as the grieving daughter-in-law. Moved to Connecticut 6 months later with a new name and a reinvented background. "She killed him," Roberto said quietly. "We can't prove that," Natalie said. "But the timing..." She trailed off, pulling up another document. James Wilson wasn't paranoid. Look at this. Police reports. 3 break-ins at James's California apartment between 2016 and 2018. Nothing stolen. Just things moved around. Photographs turned face down. Personal items rearranged. Classic intimidation. Michael Chen had similar experiences. Strange cars, anonymous calls, the feeling of being watched constantly. "She has people," Natalie said. "This isn't just Sienna. Someone's helping her cover tracks." That realization changed everything. This wasn't civil court anymore. This was criminal, potentially deadly. Roberto's house felt different that night. Every sound made him jump. Car headlights passing by looked suspicious. Around 11 p.m., he noticed something on his security camera. A dark sedan circling his block 3 times. Slowing near his driveway. His daughter Carmen called from Houston, voice panicked. "Papa, someone's been asking about you at my work. Questions about where you live, who you talk to. I'm scared." "Come stay with me," Natalie insisted when Roberto told her. "You're not safe alone." Sleeping arrangements felt awkward. She took the couch. He took the bed. Neither could sleep. At 3 a.m., Natalie checked on him, found him sitting up, looking at photos of Elena, their wedding, their daughter as a baby, Elena's last birthday. "Tell me about her," Natalie whispered, sitting beside him on the bed. Roberto talked for hours. About meeting Elena at the hotel where they both worked, her organizing the housekeeping staff, their tiny apartment, working double shifts to save money, her sickness, the bills, watching her slip away. His hand somehow ended up covering Natalie's on the photo album. Neither moved. Dawn came through the window. The tension between them was thick, grief, guilt, possibility all mixed together. He remembered Elena's final night. Lying beside her hospital bed, holding her hand exactly like this. Her voice barely there. "Find joy again, please." When does seeking justice become dangerous? How do you keep fighting when you're scared? Tell me about a time you had to be brave even when you wanted to run. The envelope arrived at Natalie's door at 6 a.m. No return address. Inside, a single photo of Roberto's daughter Carmen at her home in Houston. Grainy, telephoto lens, taken yesterday. On the back, printed in block letters. "Some fights aren't worth winning. Think about your family." Roberto's phone rang. Carmen panicked. "Papa, someone broke into my house last night. Nothing stolen, just they moved things. Family photos, all of them facing down." Natalie grabbed her keys. "We're not backing down. We're ending this. Today." Sienna Huntington had lied in bathrooms, bedrooms, and courtrooms, but she'd never had to lie under oath while evidence of 15 years of fraud sat stacked across the table. The conference room felt like a courtroom. Recording equipment hummed. Court reporters' fingers flew across keys. Sienna sat across from Roberto for the first time since the bathroom confrontation. She looked different. Designer suit, hair perfect, makeup flawless. But her eyes kept darting to the evidence folders piled in front of Natalie. "Mrs. Huntington," Natalie began, voice steady, "you claimed the ring, Mr. Ujier. Diaz wares belonged to your grandmother." "Yes." "Can you describe this ring?" Sienna did. Perfectly. Too perfectly. Like she'd studied it. "And you gave this ring to Mr. Diaz as a token of your relationship?" "Yes." Natalie slid a document across the table. "This is the original receipt from 1988, purchased at a jewelry store in Hartford by Elena Diaz. Her signature." Sienna's jaw tightened. "That's not—" "And this," Natalie continued, sliding another paper, "is the receipt for the replica ring found in your safe deposit box, commissioned September 2023, 6 months before you claimed the affair started." The room went silent. Bradford sat in the corner, watching his wife lie in real time. His face showed no emotion, but Roberto saw his hands clench. Natalie spent 4 hours methodically destroying every lie. Photos of Michael Chen. James Wilson's testimony. The pattern across 3 marriages, the threatening incidents. Sienna's lawyers tried to object, redirect, deflect. Nothing worked. By the end, Sienna's perfect mask showed cracks. Her voice wasn't quite as steady, her answers not quite as smooth. Break time came. Roberto stepped into the hallway, splashed water on his face in the bathroom. Adrenaline made his hands shake. Natalie entered. Private bathroom, she locked the door. "You're doing amazing," she said, grabbing his shoulders. He cupped her face without thinking. "Because of you." The moment froze. Her eyes searched his. The space between them disappeared. Almost kiss interrupted by knocking. "We're resuming," someone called. They pulled apart, both shaken. Later, in the car ride back, their hands brushed on the armrest. She laced her fingers through his briefly. "Whatever this is," she whispered, We'll figure it out after. Memory hit him, Elena saying the same thing when they first arrived in America. Uncertain future ahead, but together. Roberto's chest tightened with competing emotions. Have you ever watched someone lie so confidently you almost believed them yourself? What's the boldest lie someone told to your face? Drop it below. As they packed evidence to leave, Sienna's junior attorney, a young woman who'd been quiet all day, slipped Natalie a business card. On the back, handwritten, "She's planning to run. Private jet, Cayman Islands. Tonight. I can't be part of this anymore." The attorney glanced at Sienna, then at Roberto, guilt clear in her eyes. "My father was a janitor too," she whispered, then walked away. Natalie checked her watch. 4:47 p.m. We have maybe 3 hours before she's gone forever. Justice moves at the speed of law, but Sienna Huntington was moving at the speed of private jets and offshore accounts. Natalie called the judge's chambers. Friday evening, 5 p.m. Most judges would be gone for the weekend. "I need an emergency injunction," she said into her phone, weaving through Greenwich rush hour traffic. "Flight risk. Subject plans to leave country tonight." Roberto sat in the passenger seat, watching the clock on the dashboard tick forward. 5:15, 5:30, 5:45. Bradford had provided financial records showing Sienna moving money offshore over the past week. $3 million already transferred to Cayman accounts. Private jet chartered for 8:30 p.m. departure from a small airfield in Westchester. The judge granted a hearing. 7 p.m. Barely enough time. They hit traffic on I-95, construction. Brake lights stretched for miles. "Come on," Natalie muttered, checking side streets on her GPS. Roberto called the FBI agent they'd been working with. "She's running. Tonight." "We're tracking it," the agent said. "But without that injunction, we can't stop her." 6:45 p.m. They pulled up to the courthouse. Security rushed them through. Courthouse mostly empty, lights dim in hallways. Judge's chambers, oak desk, American flag, scales of justice on the bookshelf. The judge looked tired, annoyed at being kept late on a Friday. But she read the evidence. All of it. Clock on the wall, 6:58 p.m. Before the hearing started, Roberto went to the bathroom. Splashed water on his face, tried to steady his breathing. Natalie entered, locked the door behind her. "Win or lose," she said. "I need you to know something." Her hand pressed against his chest over Elena's ring. "You made me believe in this work again. In justice. In good people." He turned, backed her gently against the sink. Their foreheads touched. "Me, Elena, always said the heart knows," he whispered. "She'd want me to be happy. I think she'd like you." Their first real kiss. Desperate and necessary. Years of grief and loneliness pouring into it. They pulled apart, breathless. "After," they said together. Memory surfaced. Elena kissing him the same way the night she was diagnosed. Claiming joy before darkness came. What's the closest you've come to losing everything at the last second? When has timing been everything? Tell me your near-miss story. The judge read the injunction at 7:12 p.m. Sienna Huntington is hereby prohibited from leaving the country pending resolution of fraud investigation. Natalie exhaled. Roberto gripped the table. Victory! Except Natalie's phone buzzed. The attorney's final message. "I'm sorry. She left early. Plane took off at 6:30 p.m. from private airfield. I tried to warn you sooner. She's gone." The room tilted. All that evidence, all that fight, and she'd slipped away. Or had she? Bradford stood up slowly, phone to his ear, ghost of a smile forming. "Actually, about that flight." Sometimes the best justice is the kind criminals deliver to themselves, and Bradford Huntington III hadn't become a billionaire by playing fair. Bradford put his phone on speaker, voice on the other end. "Sir, the aircraft has been forced to land in Bermuda. Authorities are waiting." The room went silent. Bradford looked at Natalie and Roberto. "Did you think I didn't know she was planning to run? I've known for 3 days." He'd let it happen, let Sienna think she was getting away. Meanwhile, he'd contacted his international business partners, alerted authorities in multiple countries, set up a trap. "Bermuda has an extradition treaty with the U.S., Bradford explained. "She's facing international fraud charges now, much harder to fight than civil court." Natalie stared at her father. "You planned this?" "I'm many things," Bradford said coldly, "but I don't let people steal from me, and I don't let them use innocent people as pawns." An hour later, they watched the arrest on Bradford's security feed. Private tarmac, Bermuda police surrounding the plane, Sienna being led off in handcuffs. Her perfect composure finally cracking on camera. Roberto felt conflicted, grateful but disturbed. This was how billionaires played, letting people think they'd won before crushing them. Bradford's study looked like something from a movie. Old money everywhere. First time Roberto had seen inside this world beyond the rooms he cleaned. His modest apartment in Bridgeport suddenly felt more honest in contrast. Back at Natalie's apartment, exhaustion and relief crashed over them. Wine, couch, the weight of months lifting. Roberto pulled her close. "Thank you," became kisses, became hands exploring, became a wordless question. "Are we ready for this?" His fingers traced her jaw. "I'm 62, he said quietly. "I'm broken merchandise, grief and memories." She straddled his lap. Direct eye contact. "I'm 34 with father issues and a savior complex. We're both disasters." She kissed him deeply. "But I want you. Here. Now. If you want me." Elena's voice in his head, loving and clear. "Live, mi amor. That's how you honor me." Roberto chose the present. Clothes became obstacles. Her bedroom. Slow exploration. Relearning intimacy after years alone. Her patience with his hesitation. His reverence for her boldness. Two people finding each other in the wreckage. Have you ever seen someone get exactly what they deserved? That moment when karma catches up? Share your most satisfying justice story below. Morning light filtered through Natalie's bedroom curtains. Roberto woke to her fingers tracing the ring around his neck. "Tell me about the day you bought this," she whispered. He did. Hours of stories. Elena's life, their struggles, their love. Natalie listened, never jealous of a ghost, just honored to know her. His phone buzzed around noon. "Carmen, Papa, turn on the news. Now." On screen, Sienna's mugshot. And beneath it, breaking news. 3 more victims contact FBI. Pattern fraud investigation expands to 6 states. Possible connections to 2 unsolved deaths. The scope was bigger than anyone imagined. This wasn't over. Roberto Diaz spent 37 years invisible, cleaning the homes of people who never learned his name. Now his face was on every major news outlet in America. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, his story went everywhere. Working-class hero takes down wealthy scammer. The narrative wrote itself. Phone calls flooded in. Morning shows wanted interviews. Documentary producers offered contracts. Podcast hosts begged for his time. Everyone wanted a piece of Roberto's story. His modest house in Bridgeport became ground zero. News vans lined the street. Reporters camped on his lawn. Cameras followed him to the grocery store. But something beautiful happened too. His neighbors formed a protective wall. Mrs. Rodriguez brought tamales. The guys from his building stood guard. "Leave him alone," they told reporters. "He's been through enough." Someone started a GoFundMe. Money for Roberto's defense costs. Within 3 days, $200,000 raised. Strangers across America sending $5, $10, whatever they could spare. "I don't need this," Roberto told Natalie, staring at the total. "Then donate it," she said. "Start something. Help others." Press conference day arrived. Roberto wore the same borrowed suit from the deposition. Read a prepared statement Natalie had helped him write. "I'm not a hero," he said into the microphones. "I'm just a man who loved his wife, who worked hard, who got caught in someone else's lie. If my story helps even one person stand up for themselves, then maybe this meant something." Social media exploded. Hashtags trended. Justice for Roberto. Act Elena. Ring. Working people everywhere saw themselves in his story. But the attention felt wrong. Surreal. That night, Roberto watched himself on TV, talking about Elena, about justice. The man on screen looked like him but felt like a stranger. Media attention made privacy precious. Natalie kept her curtains drawn. They stole moments between phone calls and meetings. Kitchen counter one afternoon. Urgent need for connection amid chaos. "I just want to feel real," she gasped against his neck. He lifted her onto the counter, dishes clattering. "This," he said between kisses, "this is the only real thing." Afterward, sitting on her floor with takeout containers, feeding each other, laughing at how crazy their lives had become. Her head rested on his chest. His fingers ran through her hair. "Stay," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. Elena's face in his memory was becoming less sharp, replaced by Natalie's. The guilt mixed with peace now. Growth hurt, but it also healed. When has your private life become public? How do you maintain yourself when everyone has an opinion? Share your experience with unwanted fame or attention. The interview invitation came from an unexpected source, Sienna herself, from prison via her new lawyer. She wanted to tell her story, on camera, with Roberto present. Natalie's immediate response, "Absolutely not." But Roberto surprised everyone. Yes. His reasoning, simple but profound. "She took my voice for months. Now I want to hear hers, without the lies. I want to understand why." Natalie tried to argue, but his mind was set. What if she tries to manipulate you again? Roberto touched Elena's ring. "I'm not the same man she chose 6 months ago. I'm not afraid anymore." Prison orange suited Sienna Huntington poorly, but the woman who walked into that interview room was not the polished socialite anymore. She was something more dangerous, honest. The prison meeting room felt small. Harsh overhead lights. Metal table bolted to the floor. 2 cameras recording everything. Sienna entered without makeup. Hair pulled back. No jewelry. No performance. Just exhaustion and something Roberto hadn't seen before, reality. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. Roberto nodded. Natalie sat beside him, barely containing her anger. Bradford watched from a separate room through glass, confronting his own blindness. "Tell me why," Roberto said simply. Sienna's hands folded on the table. Prison had stripped away her armor. "It started when I was 19, she began. "Abusive boyfriend. No money, no options. I learned that men with money could be managed, that their guilt, their fear of scandal, their pride, these were tools I could use to survive. The first time wasn't a scam. It was desperation. My boyfriend's father. He'd been inappropriate with me for months. When I threatened to tell, he offered money instead. I took it, got away, started over." She looked at Roberto. "But survival became addiction. Each time got easier, more calculated. By the time I met Bradford, I'd perfected the system." "Why me?" Roberto asked. "Because you were perfect, grieving, older, immigrant, someone they'd believe would be grateful for attention from someone like me, and because—" She paused. "Because the way you talked about your wife, that love. I'd never had that, never even seen it up close. Part of me wanted to destroy it. If I couldn't have it, why should you keep it?" Roberto felt Natalie tense beside him. His own anger rose, but something else too. Understanding without forgiveness. "You chose to hurt people," he said. "You had choices. You chose this." "I did," Sienna agreed, "and I'll pay for it. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just, understanding that broken people break others. The interview lasted 2 hours. National broadcast planned for Tuesday. Afterward, Roberto needed escape. Natalie drove them to an overlook above the city. They sat in her car, city lights spreading below. "You were kind to her," Natalie said, confused. "She doesn't deserve it." He took her hand. "Kindness isn't about deserving. Elena taught me that." Natalie studied him. "You're the best man I know." He pulled her across the console into his lap. "Show me I'm not just good. Show me I'm still alive." Backseat passion. Windows fogging. Age and propriety forgotten. Her name on his lips. Elena's ghost finally receding, making space for new love. Later, foreheads pressed together, both breathless. "I love you," they said together, surprised. Could you face someone who tried to destroy you and show compassion? Where's the line between forgiveness and justice? This isn't easy. Tell me what you think. The interview aired on a Tuesday. 20 million viewers. By Wednesday morning, Sienna's lawyer called with a statement. She'd provide testimony against 3 powerful individuals who'd helped her: a judge, a private investigator, and a banker who'd facilitated offshore accounts. In exchange, reduced sentence. The investigation suddenly reached into Connecticut's elite. "You opened a door you can't close," the lawyer told Natalie. Roberto saw the news. The judge who'd ruled against first 2 victims, the PI who'd threatened James Wilson, the banker whose son went to school with Bradford. The corruption went deeper than anyone knew. "What did we start?" Roberto whispered. "They say one person can't change the system, but sometimes one honest voice cracks the foundation wide enough for the whole corrupt structure to crumble." Sienna's testimony opened doors nobody wanted opened. Federal investigators found an entire network. Wealthy clients using the same affair fabrication service to break prenups. Lawyers who specialized in manufacturing evidence. Private investigators who intimidated victims. Judge Robert Morrison, suspended immediately. He'd ruled against Michael Chen and James Wilson back when they tried to fight their accusations. Turned out Sienna's people had paid him off. The private investigator who'd threatened James got arrested. Bank records showed payments from 3 different shell companies, all connected to wealthy clients destroying their prenups. Connecticut legislature moved fast. Proposed reforms to prenup laws. Protection for staff members accused without evidence. Criminal penalties for fabricated affairs. Roberto got called to testify before the state committee. Standing in the Capitol building felt surreal. Marble columns, crowded gallery, politicians in suits watching him. Natalie's idea: wear his cleaning supervisor uniform. "Let them see who you really are," she said. Roberto stood at the podium, that simple uniform contrasting with everyone else's expensive clothes. "I cleaned houses for 37 years, he began. "I worked hard, paid taxes, raised my daughter, loved my wife. I did everything right, and someone still tried to destroy me because I was convenient, because I was poor, because they thought nobody would believe me over them." His words went viral within hours. Working people everywhere shared his testimony. His voice became their voice. Bradford surprised everyone by testifying, too, about the system he'd benefited from, about turning a blind eye to inequality, about using his wealth now to expose corruption. The father-daughter relationship began shifting. Natalie watched Bradford differently, still angry but seeing glimpses of the father she'd wanted. That night, hotel room in the Capitol, Roberto and Natalie, exhausted and emotional. She undressed him slowly, not sexual at first, just caring. Drew a bath, washed his back, kissed his shoulders. "You changed laws today," she murmured. "Changed how people see workers like me." In bed, their lovemaking was tender, grateful, age gap irrelevant, his experience meeting her passion, perfect fit. Morning came too soon. Wrapped in sheets, her fingers traced scars on his hands from decades of labor. These hands, she whispered, moved mountains. Memory surfaced, different now. Elena's hands, workers' hands too. In his mind, one passing torch to the other. Peace settled deep. Have you ever seen one person's courage spark real change? When his speaking up mattered more than staying silent. Share stories of everyday heroes below. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for June. Sienna faced 15 to 25 years federal prison. Her lawyer approached Roberto privately with a final offer. She wants to meet you. No cameras, no lawyers. Just 5 minutes to say something she needs you to hear. Will you give her that? Natalie advised against it. Carmen begged him not to go. But Roberto remembered Elena's final words about forgiveness and grace. Yes, he said. 5 minutes. What Sienna told him in that room would haunt him. Not because it was cruel, but because it was the first completely honest thing she'd ever said. Some confessions are for courtrooms, some are for cameras. But the truest ones happen in quiet rooms between broken people who finally have nothing left to lose. Small conference room, prison setting. No lawyers, just Roberto and Sienna across a table. Window showed the courtyard. Other inmates walking, guards watching. Real prison, not the interview room's polish. Sienna's hands were bare. No rings, no bracelets, nothing. Roberto's hands showed Elena's ring catching the light. 5 minutes, the guard said, starting a timer. I need to tell you something nobody else knows, Sienna began, about why I chose you specifically. Roberto waited. My mother was a housekeeper. She cleaned the house of the man who eventually— Sienna's voice broke. Who eventually killed her. Made it look like an accident. He was rich, connected. Nothing happened to him. Roberto's chest tightened. When I saw you, older, immigrant, cleaner, you reminded me of her dignity, her strength, and I wanted to prove that people like you could be destroyed, that the system would always protect people like Bradford over people like you. I wanted to prove my mother's death meant nothing. Tears ran down her face. Real ones. But you didn't break. You fought back. You won. And now I understand what my mother tried to teach me before she died. Dignity isn't about money. Strength isn't about power. You had what I spent my whole life trying to take from others. The 5 minutes became 40. Roberto listened to Sienna's real story. Abused childhood, dead mother, survival through manipulation, victim becoming predator. Not excuse, just context. I'm sorry, Sienna said finally. Not for getting caught. Sorry for what I did, for using your grief, for trying to erase Elena's memory. She deserved better. You deserved better. Roberto stood to leave, paused at the door. I hope you find peace, he said. Real peace, not the kind you steal. Return to Natalie felt like coming home. Roberto was emotionally raw. Needed grounding. She provided it. Took him to her apartment, undressed him piece by piece, kissed away the tension. You don't have to carry her pain, she told him between touches. Let me carry you tonight. Their intimacy deepened beyond physical. Spiritual connection. He cried during their lovemaking. Months of stress releasing. She held him through it. No shame, just love. I love you, he said again, meaning it differently now. Not grateful, claiming. I love you too, she responded. Build something new with me. Morning came with planning. His retirement from cleaning. Work with her firm on advocacy. Future taking real shape. Elena's ring stayed around his neck, but it sat differently on his heart now. Memorial, not anchor. Can you understand someone without forgiving them? Where's the line between empathy and enabling? This isn't simple. What do you think? Sentencing day arrived. June 15th, exactly 1 year since Sienna first photographed Roberto's ring at work. The courtroom packed. Victims present. Judge entered. Does the defendant wish to address the court? Sienna stood, looked directly at Roberto. "I have something to read," she said. From her pocket, a letter, not to the court. To Roberto. The first lines made people gasp. "Mr. Diaz, the day I chose you, I thought I was targeting the weakest person in that house. I was wrong. You were the strongest, and now I understand why." A $200 ring from a courthouse wedding in 1988 brought down a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme and rewrote Connecticut law, because sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest truth. Sentencing: 18 years federal prison. Full restitution to all victims. Sienna Huntington's empire of lies collapsed completely. Connecticut passed new laws. The Diaz Protection Act. Protection for workers accused without evidence. Criminal penalties for fabricated affairs. Prenup reforms that balanced both parties' rights. Roberto retired from cleaning at 62. Started working with Natalie's firm. Worker advocacy. Speaking at colleges. Helping others fight injustice. The GoFundMe money, all $200,000, became the Elena Diaz Worker Justice Fund. Foundation helping working-class people fight legal battles they couldn't afford. 1 year later, foundation opening ceremony, community center in Bridgeport. Spring day, warm sun, new beginnings. Roberto and Natalie stood together at the ribbon. Elena's photo displayed prominently inside. Honored, not erased. Michael Chen attended. James Wilson flew in from California. Other victims, workers, advocates, community members who'd supported Roberto from the beginning. Carmen, Roberto's daughter, moved back east. Embraced Natalie like family. "Dad's happy again," she told Natalie privately. "Thank you for that." Before the ceremony started, private moment in the foundation office. Natalie was nervous about her speech. Roberto calmed her with a kiss, hands framing her face. "You're brilliant," he said. "They're lucky you fight for them." She pulled him close. "We fight for them." Their passion interrupted preparation. Desk cleared, her against the wall. Years of grief transformed into present joy. Quick, urgent, perfect. Afterward, fixing her clothes, laughing. "We're professionals," she mock-scolded. "We start in 10 minutes. He kissed her neck. "Mi amor, we're alive. Elena would approve." The ceremony was beautiful. Roberto spoke about Elena, about justice, about second chances. Bradford attended, standing in the back, trying to rebuild trust with Natalie, using his wealth now for good instead of protection. That night, their home, bought together, kitchen, bachata playing on the speaker. They danced slow. Roberto spinning Natalie like he used to spin Elena. But this was different. New love, new life. His age didn't matter. Her youth didn't matter. Just this. Two people who found each other in wreckage and built something real. Elena's ring hung around his neck, not weighing him down anymore, just reminding him that love, real love, never truly ends. It just transforms. The Smithsonian requested the ring for an exhibit on working-class America. Roberto agreed to loan it. "It represents something bigger now," he told Natalie. "Every worker whose truth matters more than money." So, what would you do if your worst moment became your greatest transformation? If injustice led to purpose? If grief made space for new love? Comment below, because Roberto's story started with false accusation and ended with truth that changed thousands of lives. What's your story of transformation? If this story made you feel something, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Tell me in the comments, which moment hit you hardest? And remember, your story matters too. The ring that Elena bought in 1988 is now in the Smithsonian, on loan from Roberto Diaz, representing every worker whose truth matters more than money. Sometimes the smallest voices echo loudest.